the Evaluation Couch with Maria Montenegro. Hello, everyone. In this episode, I have the pleasure of having Dr. Michelle Anderson-Draper as a guest in the Evaluation Couch. Michelle is the incoming president of the Canadian Evaluation Society. She is currently a community engagement specialist at the University of British Columbia, has had an evaluation consulting practice for many years, and is a longtime member of the Canadian Evaluation Society. Okay, Michelle, thank you so much for joining me. I'm very excited that you accepted my invitation and you're here today.
It's my pleasure. I'm excited to be here. So thank you for having me on your podcast.
No, thank you. And Michelle, I do want to start congratulating you for your CES presidency. And I was reading and realized that this year is going to be, I believe, the 25th year that you've been involved and a member of CES.
Oh my goodness. Is it that long? It probably is. I joined in the late 1990s. So yes, you're right. My goodness, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, but what a great way to celebrate that milestone to be the president.
Thank you. Yes, it is. It is. And the Canadian Evaluation Society has been instrumental in my career throughout those 25 years, the colleagues I've met, the opportunities I've had. So it's definitely my privilege to be in the role of incoming president.
That is very exciting. And another thing I learned about you is that you have been involved throughout the existence of the designation program.
Yes, I have. And that is a program that's very near and dear to my heart. When National Council passed the designation, so the CS board at that time was called the National Council, there was lots of development, lots of debate. I happened to be sitting on the board when we were able to make that final vote. Just for some of the listeners that may not be familiar with the designation, that's a professional designation through the Canadian Evaluation Society that demonstrates you've got the skills, the education, the knowledge to do competent evaluation as defined through the Canadian Evaluation Society. So it's a credentialed evaluation professional designation. Then I was part of the first cohort that went through the application process, had my application reviewed, and was granted the designation in 2011.
Something, Michelle, that I respect and admire a lot is that you're still involved and you're mentoring a cohort of people that is interested in receiving that designation. Can you share a bit more about that? That's a new initiative. Is that right?
It is. One of the things we've noticed throughout is some individuals were seeking that community of practice, if you will, that extra support. And so Beth and Iman, who is also on the board, put out a call to see if any of the members of the credentialing committee, but even just members who have that professional designation, were interested in mentoring a group to help them go through the credentialing process. So I put up my hand and I was matched with, I think, we're about eight individuals, and we've been meeting monthly for almost a year now. And so far, one has put through their application and the others are working hard on it. We have transitioned from looking at each of the competencies and providing examples and helping review each other's submissions to now what we're calling writing time. So I start the meeting, they join in, and we ask questions, we have some discussion, we look at each other's work, and then we just spend quiet time while they write. And I think that's important, especially because people are so busy with their jobs, their life, and this just gives some dedicated time. So I'm hoping that a couple of others will put their applications in before September, because as a credentialing review board, we've had some updates on the designation. There's been some changes. And so these folks, if they're able to submit before September.
That is such a good idea. When I applied to the credential designation, there was nothing like this. And I actually had to seek out people that had gone through the process. I didn't know anyone. So I went through like a connection and then emailed people that I didn't know. And yeah, what a great initiative. And Michelle, another thing that I read of the many contributions and roles you've played in CES is that you have facilitated the essential skills workshops several times. And that is actually how I started my evaluation journey. And the moment that I realized I wanted to follow this profession and like be an evaluator. So just wanted to share that with you. It's such a great opportunity as well for others that are not in evaluation to learn about the field.
And that Essential Skills series has really evolved over the years, and there's online components. I've done some that were also tailored for government employees, if you will, with the government of Alberta. Yeah, it really is it's a great overview of what it takes to do evaluation. Hopefully then as others will follow your footsteps when they take Essential Skills, it'll be an opportunity to dip a toe in and say, oh, I really would like to learn more about developmental evaluation or cost-benefit analysis.
Yeah, super interesting. So, Michelle, I'm curious. I know we'll have several questions where we'll talk about your career and what got you to where you are now and at this next stage in your evaluation career with the presidency. But how did you get started?
You recall your podcast on happenstance. And that rings true for me when I share this story. Back when I was at the University of Ottawa, I had met my husband and we were in grad school together. And I was pregnant with our first and had just terrible morning sickness. I just couldn't do anything for the first part of the day. But I seemed to be pretty good late afternoon, early evening. So I had a couple of courses left to take. And the one course I was going to take was first thing in the morning. And at that time, there wasn't much support. Or the prof sort of said, no, if you can't make it, you can't make it. You should find another course. So I found a program evaluation course from something like 4:30 to 6:30. And my partner, husband, said, well, I think that would be an interesting course. I'll take it with you. What an amazing course it was. The people that we met in that course, we are still connected to this day. In fact, one of the individuals in the course was best man at our wedding. It was University of Ottawa. Brad Cousins in his height of teaching participatory evaluation. He didn't teach that course, but I sure did connect with Brad a lot following that course and throughout my career as a mentor. So yeah, when I took it, it was maybe you felt similar when you took Essential Skills. It was like, this is home. This is right. It just feels like a career that I want to further explore. And following that, we ended up moving to Alberta, and I got a position with Solicitor General Alberta Justice. And I met an individual called Francis Remedios, who was quite involved in evaluation. He brought me into the Canadian Evaluation Society. I was doing some work in that role, but I expanded and then decided to go back to school to do a graduate degree. There wasn't one in evaluation, so I had to make one. And I took courses in education and human pathology and public health, and I put it all together. I did some research and some teaching at the university, and that was my career, how it unfolded. But happenstance is right.
So interesting. One thing I noticed from your CV when you applied for the presidency is that although you have found evaluation and evaluation has seemed to be a constant in your career, you've actually engaged in different positions and you've taught communication and done a variety of very interesting positions, including the one that you're in right now. What do you think are some of the aspects of your career that have been non-linear and have had the most significant contributions to your practice as an evaluator?
Evaluation has always come back. Even if I decide that I'm going to go a certain way, I worked with the Alberta government. I did manager strategic evaluation for children and youth services and decided after a number of years and working as well with education that I wanted to go back and do a teaching degree. I was doing some consulting, and when I finished the teaching degree, I taught for a little while, but there was a municipal election, and I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool to be an elected official? I think I'd like to do that. So I put my name in, and I was successful. And so I sat on the board of trustees for the second largest school district in Alberta, Edmonton Public, for 8 years, for 2 terms, and I was board chair. But one of the lovely things about the intersection of evaluation and my role in governance was that at about midway through, I started a Doctor of Education at Western. And my dissertation in practice is exactly that. It was establishing an evaluative culture within the board of trustees and the school board, and then looking at policy evaluation. There was no framework at the time. And so that's what I ended up doing my dissertation on, was combining my role as school board trustee and evaluator. So that was really exciting. And then from that, I wanted to expand my working knowledge of change management. I did a fair amount of that theoretically with the Ed D and some with Edmonton Public. So I got a position with the University of British Columbia. And that's where I am now, doing community engagement and looking at the intersection between evaluation and change management.
One thing that I loved of your nomination letter for the CS presidency is how you drew from your transferable skills of being an elected official and how you're going to leverage your advocacy skills to promote the professionalization of evaluation. And I think showing that and using your career as an example really highlights the importance of building our transferable skills, following our curiosity, trying these things out, and how it all adds up, right? It all adds up to the profession and what we want to do.
It is. Advocacy was something that I was able to really work on and hone my skills as the chair of the board. So I'd like to continue and use those within the Canadian Evaluation Society. We've done a lot of great work building relationships with the federal government, with the Treasury Board, and how can we ensure that the professional designation is known by leaders and officials within government and not for profit. So that's a big piece of the work that I'd like to see happen with my 2 years as president.
Definitely. And then your new experience within change management, to me, actually makes a lot of sense, because in my role as an internal evaluator and trying to embed knowledge translation in the way that we do evaluation so that we're actually informing practice and improving services, at the end of the day, what it always comes down to is the change management. Like, we are trying to promote change, and we have this huge field with a lot of frameworks and evidence and best practices that we could leverage in how we're communicating those recommendations from evaluation and the findings so that they are actually adopted.
Yes, and Michael Quinn-Patton's utilization-focused evaluation was instrumental to me in the early years, and I still refer to that when I meet with new clients and talk about how to make this useful, how to help people shift their knowledge, attitudes, behavior, going back to our friendly logic models. But you're right, in terms of organizational change, one of the pieces in our work right now, in my work, is helping people make a transition to a major IT system. And the current system is 30 years old, the new one, Workday Student. People have been, used to the current system. So how do you help people make that change? And we have to focus on the people side of change to make sure that the change can be implemented successfully. So, yeah, I do find that the intersection is strong for sure. They're both got their particular disciplines and particular lenses.
Definitely. It sounds like you're bringing in a very interesting toolbox of skills and different disciplines to the presidency. And my understanding is that you are starting that role very soon. So how are you feeling?
The turnover is July 1st, and I'm excited, cautiously optimistic, and lots of things to learn and relationships to build. I'm grateful that Andrea Lisa, the current president, is staying on in the role as past president. Very strong. There's a very strong board that have welcomed me to the role. And, we met at the conference in Fredericton and back in May, and it was just amazing. So I'm excited about the presidency, and being co-chair of the conference was a nice position to be in, to meet and get to know the people that I'll be working most closely with.
And as you mentioned, we met at the CS conference in Fredericton. We actually had dinner together, and we just happened to sit next to each other. And happenstance, definitely. And I asked you a question about the CS presidency, and your answer was so great. And that's why I decided to invite you to my podcast. So would you want to share what you shared with me?
I'd be happy to. Maria, you asked why I was interested in being president, I think, at the time, and what I had been sort of thinking about. And I mentioned that years ago, I watched the award ceremony at a conference. I watched Linda get welcomed into as a fellow and read about all of Linda's accomplishments, also past president as Larry, Linda's partner, was as well, and they're mentors of mine. And I said, yeah, I want that one day. I want to be in a position where I've contributed to the society and I'm recognized after a long and fulfilling career, which continues past beyond becoming a fellow. And it sort of just stayed in the back of my mind. I started talking to some people about who have been fellows, what their journey was, and that's a significant contribution to society. And so many people do so much. And I thought, well, certainly want to give back to CES, and if not now, then when? So I started talking to folks about the next term for the president and put my name in. And so whether or not the fellowship will follow, that will be determined. But I think certainly being in a position where I can give back to the Canadian Evaluation Society, which has been such an important part of my life, especially in terms of the Canadian Journal for program evaluation. I've been able to put some of my work in there and publish some articles, and just the colleagues that I've met, the people that I've had an opportunity to connect with, it's been amazing. So
I really, really appreciate that, Michelle, because I think oftentimes when we think about career planning and career goals, we tend to think that that's something you do when you're starting your career and in the very early years when you're trying to figure things out. And what I love about your story is that it highlights how it's an ongoing process. It continues to evolve as you have more experience, as you are exposed to more things, as you see what others are achieving. And I really appreciate your story for that reason. And to see you now getting into this position and follow your steps after, I think it's really going to be a gift in terms of showing what happens when you take action towards those goals. One question I have is, if you think about now, how you are making decisions towards your career goals, what have you learned in the process that could help others that are navigating their career?
I'm not sure what the exact stat is, but it talks about people having lots of different careers in their life. And I am certainly one that I've followed many different roads and taken many different opportunities. Evaluation has been constant throughout. As someone just starting my career, looking back, I always had that inkling that, well, I want to be a teacher. That was what I wanted to be. And I didn't quite sort of go that way. And then about midway through my career, I'm like, well, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go to do a Bachelor of Education after degree, and I'm gonna be a teacher. Well, I went in and I taught for a little bit, and it was amazing. But then another opportunity came up, being on the board of trustees as an elected official. So in thinking back, if my advice would be, if there's something that niggles at you that you think I've always wanted to be, it doesn't have to happen right away. But if it continues to kind of tell you that that's something that you wanted to explore. I am absolutely a lifelong learner. Went back middle of my career from Bachelor of Education, and then did a bunch of other different things, and then went back to school and did a Doctor of Education. And now I'm looking forward to teaching a course in my program at Western. I think that it's just always, like you said, follow your curiosity, go down different roads and see where they lead. Say yes as much as you can. At different times in our journey, we can say yes more than others. Have fun too. Life is too short to do work that is no fun. So I've been fortunate to be able to always do things that I enjoy. And if we feel stagnant, or if there's not that inspiration, then what can we do? And for me, it was looking at CES and saying, well, what can I do for CES? President, oh, that's inspired and that's exciting.
Yeah. One thing, Michelle, that you made me think when you talked about fun and the importance of having fun is the role of CES in making our career more fun. And you've mentioned throughout your career how important CES has been. And you've also mentioned a few people you've met through CES and that you're close with. On the topic of CES involvement, some of us, including myself, I think maybe we don't have as much visibility around what it takes to become a president. Do you have any thoughts around this?
It's a big time commitment. So I would say that in a point in your career where you're able to provide that time. And ideally, if you had an employer that supported that, that would give you some extra time. But certainly, it's a big commitment. Like any leadership role, if you have that ability to connect, facilitate, work with others, fostering partnerships, I think that it really is maybe a desire to serve your society.
And if someone is not there yet in their career, what are other ways to get involved?
There's lots of board positions. There's one out right now, I think, for the Student Emerging Evaluator representative on the board. So that'd be a great one. So important for us to have that as a board. And there's a couple of other positions that are out. So I'd say, watch whatever you're interested in. And if you don't see a formal position, there's an opportunity to review proposals. There's opportunity to help with planning, whatever you're interested in.
Yeah, and I like, as you mentioned, that many different ways and kind of entry points to getting involved with CES. I think sometimes it can be overwhelming, or it can be a bit intimidating having an actual board position and what that would entail. But there's so many different ways of getting involved. And in some of those ways, it really is like a win-win situation. I volunteered to review the American Evaluation Association abstracts. And what a great learning experience in terms of knowing how to develop abstracts that people are going to accept, because you're looking at the criteria and seeing how it works. So many opportunities to learn for yourself while contributing and meeting people and start building that network of supporters.
Absolutely. A few years back, I volunteered to review abstracts for the European Evaluation Association, and it happened to be in Greece, and I was reviewing them, and I'm like, this sounds excellent. Oh, I would like to go to this. I've always wanted to go to Greece. I think I'll go to the conference. So you never know, right? So many wonderful ways to also see the world and not just stay involved with CES, but expand to all of the other evaluation networks that are across the world.
Definitely. And one thing I've learned through my involvement with EvalView is that we have so much to learn from others across the regions, and every evaluator has different approaches and ways and skills and strengths. And it's just a learning experience to collaborate in groups that have representation from across the world. The other aspect of CES that is another entry point, Michelle, that maybe you can describe a little bit, are the provincial chapters.
Yeah, they are. So each province, more or less, has a chapter with their own executive board of directors, their own events that they'll put on. Those are great opportunities to meet people more local. They'll have sometimes just networking opportunities where people will meet at a coffee shop. Sometimes they're professional development. And they also have positions that you can be part of if you're looking to help develop some professional development opportunities. You are part of the chapter where you live. So when you become a member of Canadian Evaluation Society, then if you live in British Columbia, like I do now, then I'm a member of the BC chapter. It's really nice to have that local chapter perspective, be involved in the local chapters.
I agree. I'm a member, and I also contribute to the conference of the British Columbia chapter.
Yes, that's coming up in October.
It is coming up in October, and it's probably one of my favorite days in the year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. There's a lot of value in building a network that is local and regional. Such a great strategy in terms of jobs and opportunities in your area. And also just evaluators are always among the best people. So it's great to have in-person connections.
I agree about what you said about evaluators being the best people. One of the things you mentioned about careers and professional opportunities, I don't think I explored much in my answers, but I do want to highlight that is an excellent way to get experience. There's the job board, any national positions, but the local chapters. And also when you get to know some of the people that are doing work there, maybe see if there's room on their team to put in a proposal. Definitely ask. If you're interested in a certain type of evaluation, then looking to see if you can't do one of those 5-minute coffee chats. I've done a lot of work in developmental, participatory evaluation, locally, more community-based things. And I've always thought, I'd like to look at international evaluation. And so that's going to be something for my next career. So I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be reaching out to colleagues who do that work and say, hey, if there's room on your team, I'd love to learn.
I love, Michelle, how you continue reinforcing the ongoing process of career learning and continue to grow and expand. And what you were referring to, I call information interviews, and they're so helpful. And I found that a lot of people are hesitant to reach out to people they don't know. But the way that I frame it when I have discussions with people around this is the worst thing that can happen is they don't respond. That is the worst thing that can happen. And the best thing that can happen is you make a new friend, you make a good connection, you find out about a job opportunity. It's endless, really. The best scenario is endless, but there's very little that we have to lose if we don't get a response.
And most people like to talk about themselves, and they like to share what they've done. And in our hearts, we want to help other evaluators with opportunities. So I think it's kind of flattering when people reach out. I would definitely encourage, or if you see somebody that has similar trajectory and you're like, oh, I wonder how they got there. Reach out on LinkedIn or with CES. You can also see those who have that credentialing, that professional designation. We have a list by province.
It just keeps coming up, the different things that CES has, because it truly provides so many different opportunities for people to build their career, to learn about evaluation, to connect with others. Looking back, this question might be challenging, but looking back, what would you say is one of the most valuable things that you have gained thanks to your involvement with CES?
Probably the network, the friends that I've made. Just, Molly and I co-chairing, we'd never met each other. We're on different ends of the country, and we started working together. And now we just had a chat the other day, and we're just as friends. And then all the mentors that I've reached out to over the years and who've helped guide my work. Colleagues turned friends.
Yeah, I think earlier you said that CES has been home for you. That resonates. The more I progress in my career and I attend CES events, the more I can relate to that comment.
And I would suspect that it's probably challenging to come into something like that for people maybe who are listening to the podcast, who come in and there's like 400 people at the conference. How do I sort of get in and get to know people? So I would encourage them to take that opportunity and see if there are ways that can help smooth that path. So I'm thinking, for instance, at the conference, there was the fellows and the Student and the Emerging Evaluator breakfast. And we had two of our fellows at the door that would say, oh, you're a student or you're an emerging evaluator, come and sit and have breakfast with the fellows. And, that activity was a direct result of our students and emerging evaluator representative Amanda, who we were chatting with around planning for the conference, sharing that some students and emerging evaluators didn't necessarily find CS very open or very friendly. And that's certainly never the intention. I think we just have known each other for a long time. Sometimes it may be difficult to open up, but we sure, are so keen to have our students and young and emerging evaluators be a part of it. And the breakfast is just one example that I'm certainly hoping that anyone listening to the podcast will reach out to you, reach out to me and share ideas of how we can make the ES more open and inclusive. You're definitely very outgoing and you reach it out, but if people maybe aren't too sure how they do it, well, they could contact you and then contact me and we'll make it happen together.
Yeah, that's a great advice. I love that, and also appreciate, Michelle, your openness to feedback and hearing what the experiences are for other people. I have heard similar comments, and it's interesting, as you say, sometimes when we attend these events, it's the one chance we have to see people that we have developed friendships with and we don't get to see in person. And at the same time, how do we create those spaces where others feel welcomed? On that topic, something I appreciate of the CES conferences in general is that they allow for several opportunities to network and interact with people by the way that the conference is structured. So you have lunch, and lunch is a great opportunity to sit in a table where you don't know people. You have thematic breakfast, which is also a great opportunity to go to something you're really curious about and you're interested in learning. That will probably also include other people you haven't met. And then there's the social events that are great opportunities to network and connect and meet people. And another aspect you mentioned as well is having that one person. Like, that's really all you need. Like, one person you can reach out to and be like, you know what? I don't know anyone. Let's hang out. And yeah, I'm happy to be that person for anyone in future CES conferences.
I love that. As incoming president, I would like to put a challenge out to those listening to the podcast. Attend a chapter event, attend a national learning event, reach out to someone to have that informational interview, see where it goes, get involved in the society. And if you don't see something formal as an entryway, then reach out and suggest a way that you would like to be involved, and we can make those connections.
I love that. The CES presidency is not only extremely experienced and accomplished, but also completely bought into the concept of planned happenstance.
Absolutely. When I listened to your podcast, I was like, well, that's our meeting together, how I came into evaluation. So many examples. Yeah. I'm also a big believer in saying it out loud. And sometimes it's scary, right? But the things that I said out loud, well, we have to sometimes be careful of what we wish for, because when they come true, we're like, oh my, okay, that happened. Well, here we go. Hold on. It'll be exciting. But yeah, those goals out loud. Who knows, 5 years, 10 years.
And also in saying those goals out loud, you recruit supporters and people that are going to be cheering for you and looking for ways to help you out. One thing that I've never heard, and you definitely know more evaluators, so maybe you have, but I have never met someone that says out loud that they are striving to and working towards becoming a fellow. But I'm sure that there's people out there that have had this little flame inside of them being like, that would be great. I would be honored to be in that situation. Do you have any advice for people that have felt this?
Hey, dream big, let's go big, take chances, get involved, learn, work together, work hard. I go back to being excited about what you're doing and enjoying it and having fun. Then it doesn't seem like work. Give as much as you're able to, and find things that are interesting to you. Take advantage of all the opportunities that you have. Surround yourself with people that also want to support the society, support CES, that have similar values, and then surround yourself with people that don't have the same information and approach and understanding of things, and then have those conversations. So just keep learning all the time.
I love it. Thank you, Michelle. You have given so many great advices and shared so much of your experience, and I am personally very excited to see where you take CES in these next 2 years. Before we close off, you have shared a few things that you're interested in focusing on this year. Can you share one thing that you're really looking forward to?
I'm really looking forward to working with the board and all of the committees and the chapters, continuing to strengthen the relationships that we have with our partners, and looking towards more professional development opportunities and conferences. I would love to get more involved and support students and emerging evaluators, making that opportunity to see new people come into CES and feel welcomed and have a place. Yeah, advocacy. So I'm not stopping when there's too many things I'm excited about, Maria. I can't even think of one. So all of those things.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And on that note, just a final reminder to people listening, the Student and Emerging Evaluator position in the CES board is currently accepting nominations. And what a great opportunity and what a great entry point towards CES. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm loving your podcasts. I've listened to a few already, so keep them coming.